Nurse.org and Major League Sports teams are honoring nurses with discounted game tickets and once-in-a-lifetime experiences. From throwing the first pitch to riding the Zamboni to on-court recognition, join the fun. Visit nurse.org/nurse night to find a nurse appreciation event near you and grab your discounted tickets today.
The Love and Leary podcast is where nursing leadership, innovation, and real talk come together. Hosted by nurse leaders Marian Leary
and Rebecca Love.
The show dives into the issues that matter most to today's nursing community.
Each episode features candid conversations, expert insights, and bold perspectives on healthcare, leadership, advocacy, and the future of nursing. Whether you're a clinical nurse, nurse leader, or another healthcare changemaker, Love and Leary offers thoughtful dialogue and practical takeaways to inform, inspire, and empower nurses at every stage of our careers.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Love and Leary podcast. We're excited to be joined today by Lulette Infante, an incredible nurse who has joined us to speak about her journey as a Filipino nurse coming into the United States and all that was involved with this. Lulette is an incredible nurse leader. In fact, she is the current Northern California chapter of ANIA, has a recent fine fellowship from the Center for Nursing Value, and has a long, incredible history of living from one side of the country to the other, driving incredible nursing change through ambulatory nursing, and has been on profound impact. So Lulette, Marian and I are so glad to have you here with us today. We were really inspired by a post that you had shared several months ago talking about your journey. So can you just go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself and background, and we'll dive in.
Sure. I wanted to start by really want to say gratitude to both of you for having me here today. I am honored to be in your presence and to be able to share my story. And also wanted to acknowledge those who came before me, because the reason, why I'm here today is a lot of people, nurses, in particular, who paved the way. And one of those nurses is my mother-in-law. Actually, she passed away about 10 years ago. She gave 40 years of service to this country and to all of the hardworking nurses who are here, and just to be able to provide an opportunity to share one story. And I encourage everybody who's listening to listen to other people's stories, because there's many of us, and you're going to hear incredible story of passion and strength. So I'll start, I guess, from before I moved to the country. I was born in the Philippines. I was raised in Manila, Philippines. I moved to New York City in the early 90s. My dad worked in the World Trade Center for about a decade already. And then my parents were not together. So we moved to New York City to join him, really for a better life for me and my 3 younger siblings. I was 18 then, a teenager. My younger brother was 16, and I have a 10 and 12-year-old sisters. So without our mother with us during this move to another country, I was not only a teenager navigating a new country, but also trying to raise and help support my dad in raising my siblings. So a total culture shock is, to say the least. I started a nursing school in the Philippines for about a year and a half. I graduated high school at 15. So we don't have middle school in the Philippines. So typically, nurses actually graduate before they're 20 years old. So I started nursing school. However, when I transitioned here, I had to find a nursing program. I really wanted to become a doctor initially. My mom convinced me. She's a teacher. She convinced me to become a nurse as a pre-med. And then she said that if you still really want to continue becoming a doctor, we will support. So I fell in love with nursing. I just never left. Started in pediatrics, and something that I have had experience for 25 years. I work in the largest health system in New York. I live in California now, but in the early 90s, when I started, there was really no jobs. Hospitals were closing at that time. They were merging. And I remember really struggling to find a internship. And I was fortunate enough to get an internship in the Children's Hospital, where I stayed for 25 years. I always say I never left. But at that time, they were closing units, closing hospitals. I remember that they were calling nurses not to come to work that night because the unit was closed already. So there was it was very challenging, because there was animosity, just uncertainty. Are they going to have jobs? So our preceptors, you have to kind of understand where they're coming from. They were prepping us that you're not going to get a job here. Don't even think you're going to get a job. So I took a part-time job in the hospital, and I really loved it. Started in hematology oncology, and then also in med-surg, and I fell in love with hemonc. I was there for about 13 years in the inpatient space, transitioned to ambulatory, and then in nephrology and also research. I coordinated a bunch of NIH-funded studies. I was also the founding member of the pediatric kidney transplant program for that health system, which is the largest health system, the largest program in the country in pediatrics. I've completed my master's degree in nursing informatics. So with that role, right prior to moving to California in 2021, I was a quality and informatics lead for 25 primary care sites in this health system, where I was working with a lot of focus on quality with the vice chair of pediatrics, and leading a lot of workflow optimization with all of those service line. So currently, I am a nurse consultant at a large Northern California hospital, and as Rebecca mentioned, I am serving as the NorCal president for American Nursing Informatics Association, and also an active member of the DIA committee for ACNL, Association of California Nurse Leaders, and recently proudly completed my fine fellowship. So that's where I was and where I am currently.
Well, you certainly have not been not busy, Lulette, as you've taken this entire career and what you've been able to do. And I think that what we were just really struck with, and part of your comments around this, was the impact of what was going on in the country at the time of your post, and it's still happening today, around immigration enforcement and nursing, and the fear that is sort of out there in the community of what you're seeing. And I think that you had such a unique perspective of hopes and dreams. So can you sort of tell us, what are sort of the things that you're hearing from your communities? What are the conversations that are happening? What inspired you to write this post?
And and just before you do that, maybe summarize what your post was about? It's been a few months
yes.
now, and it might be helpful to set the stage a little for our listeners.
Sure. So the post was actually an article. I remember waking up that morning and opening up LinkedIn as I'm getting ready for work, and I read the article. Patricia Regalado wrote it, and it's the title was Nursing, Immigration, and Peace and Policy. And I remember reading it. I was just very emotional reading it, because it just speaks to the fact that in the current situation, a lot of immigrants are scared to seek healthcare, and to be able to and just really realizing that if we are not advocating for our patients as nurses, that there's going to be a lot of harm that's going to come with that. And not only that, the downside effect of not being able to have immigrants in healthcare in general, it's gonna be detrimental to the health and even the economic impact to the country. So she mentioned that as somebody who is in academia, she also worries about what this will be the effect for our future generation of nurses. Who is going to train these nurses, especially if they are first generation immigrants, and seeing that how their family and friends are being treated in the current state of our country, not being able to provide the care that they want, not being scared to seek help. And so that really gave me pause, but also reminded myself the post that I wrote was something to the effect that when our country is getting old. The whole world, actually, we have such a need for nurses and immigrant nurses and everybody who wants to support our aging population. How are we going to do that without all of these resources? And quite honestly, immigrant population provides a lot of that support, a lot of that workforce. And saying that, who is going to take care of you and me and our parents, our friends, our family, when the time comes when we don't have a good pipeline of nurses and nursing leaders and trained professionals who are going to take care of us in the future.
Your post really struck me because you started out saying, I came to this country with 2 suitcases and a dream. And
Yes.
you've been here now for over 25 years, correct?
Over 30 years.
Over 30 years.
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about what that feels like now to have, put all of your work and energy into taking care of people in this country?
Yeah.
And now having this country turn its back on immigrants and making it that much harder for immigrants to not only come in this country, live in this country, work in this country, feel safe in this country. What does that feel like to you? And, how do you see it affecting the care you give and the care that other immigrants are going to be able to give?
Yeah, even before, when I was in the front line, and I'm in pediatrics, so we are, I think that just taking care of immigrants back then, when there is no not feeling safe to seek care, and you can just the support that they need. I have kids who are translating for their parents, because they don't have, because their parents doesn't speak English, and we provide translation to them, of course. But a lot of times, if it's just like a quick conversation, they rely on the kids, and the kids are sick. So, a lot of, and to me, one of the things that really advocate for is, providing translation services, because I said that, as an immigrant, if my dad who's brilliant, very smart man, but he is hearing impaired. So when he doesn't have a hearing in the hospital, and nobody's advocating for him to have access to, to a writing pad, to be able to, to understand what they're saying, is really very hard to see. So I feel that, when I see somebody who is just saying, oh, this is just going to be quick, let's just discuss what the surgery looks like. So I always advocate and say, let's take a pause, and we really need to be able to get an informed consent. So, and it's not even like in this environment right now, you're not, just the fact that they're not showing up to their doctor's appointments at this point, they're scared, and being able to follow. I'm just thinking of all of our patients who are, who are in such a rigid cancer therapy, that they have to have their blood count, their chemotherapy, all of their healthcare needs is not being met, because of they're just scared to even come out of their house, just to even go food shopping. And it's mind-blowing to me, because coming from the Philippines, everybody comes to this country because they want opportunity to better themselves. And I said that in my post, because I really did come with two suitcases, with my family, thankfully. But some of them then doesn't come with their family. They don't have support. They don't really have anything. So, to us nurses, I feel that we really need to be the ones who's speaking up and advocating for them, just learning, where they came from. What did it take for them to get here? For me, it was my dad sacrificing, over a decade of being apart from us to be able to support the family. My mom raised us as a single mom, essentially. because, he had to work, and we didn't see him. And that is just such a common story. And, in immigrant families, they sacrifice so much. Like I said, my mother-in-law, she came to this country by herself and had to navigate the country. My aunt just turned 85, and she gave us a story of what it was when she came to this country in like the 60s. The first state that she went to was like Tennessee, and it was the culture shock that she experienced there was incredible. Like they were really just a lot of hurtful words, and, just not being seen as the person who you are, because, just the color of your skin. And I feel like that a lot of immigrants feel that way. A lot of nurses, even I had a nursing assistant who was Russian, and he's a doctor in Russia. So I always believe, I always talk to him about like how he came here and he had to sacrifice because he had to, had to take care of his family. And a lot of immigrants' stories are like that. They work so hard just to be able to send money back home to, to support their family. And what they do, they really try is to support the family and the generations, so then they can then support, the future generations. Just like how, my mother-in-law took care of the rest of her family, to be able to come here. And then everybody now has, a really good life from all her hard work, how she started coming here and being able to support the family.
Hey nurses, looking for exclusive discounts? Nurse.org has you covered with deals on everything. Save big on the essentials you need to excel in your career. Don't miss out. Visit nurse.org/discounts for the latest discounts made just for you.
Your story really is like the gold standard of what, people base the American dream on, right? Like you came here with very little. You got this incredible education. You have this incredible professional career now where you are giving back to the people in this country. I guess I just wonder, like, what do you think the effect of all of these policies around immigration, all of the ICE campaigns, and like, how do you see that affecting the profession and, immigrants who want to come here, get a nursing degree and have a similar life to what you put together?
Yeah, I think so. I personally don't have a first-hand experience, with immigration. However, I do, when all of this were happening, even my own kids, because, obviously we're not white, and they're New Yorkers. My husband's born and raised in New York, but he's totally Filipino, so he has brown skin. My son was working in my brother owns a business in New York in food service, and my son was working for him. And my brother was telling me that they would sometimes do raids. I was petrified for him, and I made him carry his passport with him. And he said, but, it's like, Mama, they're not gonna bother me. But then he realized, he saw it firsthand in his community in Brooklyn. Both my kids live in New York. So he saw it in Brooklyn. He sees in the kitchen where they were in Queens. And they see that, they would come in. So even for my own family, I said, imagine us who has just given, a lot for this country. And it's not like the country owes me or owes us. I really don't feel that way. I just wanted to be treated as a contributing member of society. And, we came here because we really want to serve. We want to help. We want to, and nursing is such a great career to be able to, to provide the economic freedom for a lot of immigrants, nurses, women. So I feel that, that is something that impacted me as somebody who's an immigrant, because I guess it's quite scary. And I know that a lot of people are scared. Immigrants, we just put our heads down. We go to work. We take care of what we need to do. It's just a culture that, that we just, we work hard. We don't want to be seen or heard. We just want to contribute and do our thing and go home. So I just feel that, obviously something that it's very hard for me to do. So I just wanted nurses to advocate for patients and use the profession. And that's really how I want to approach things, because obviously this environment is not, a lot of people don't feel safe. I mean, I'm, personally, as immigrants, just being outside, in your neighborhood. I just went to Hawaii, but it was still in the United States, but I carry my passport card everywhere I go. I just don't want to take the risk. So, and I just feel like people who don't even have any proper identification, how much more they don't want to leave their house. How are they able to provide for their family? And, it's affecting our economy. It's affecting, a lot of my family. Our roots came from the grape pickers in California. My grandfather's brother really was the first one who came to this country in like the 50s. And he was one of the grape pickers in Delano. And then, so my grandfather followed him. My dad did that initially when he first came to the country, but my dad is well educated. So he really didn't work out for him. So he moved to New York and was able to get, a white collar job. Just the economic impact of all of these things. And just to remind folks that these are jobs that really a lot of Americans don't want to do. These are the jobs that immigrants are doing to be of service to the country. And we are all benefiting from that, from the produce that you're enjoying, from the healthcare that, that you're provided. For nurses to advocate, as nurses, it's, we are the true advocate. And, whether you like it or not, nursing is political, because you have to be able to voice. It can't be, you can't be, I know both sides, or I recognize both sides. You have to be able to, if you see that somebody is not being treated well, they're not seeking healthcare. They're not, just to be able to say that, that is wrong. And if you feel that you don't feel safe saying that, that's because of your political leanings or affiliation. But as a nurse, that is our responsibility. We took the oath to protect our patients. So I feel like as a nurse, that's something that we all need to really just to be able to feel safe and brave enough to say that I really wanted to protect my patients.
Lulette, I really appreciate this perspective because you went to nursing school. Your mother-in-law was a nurse that did this. Your mother went and sacrificed so much. And if we're actually looking at the history of the Philippines, in the 1980s to the 1990s, there was actually a doubling of the Filipino nursing workforce in the United States who came in to actually stabilize the nursing workforce. And if the numbers are sort of true that are out there, they're saying about 150,000 Filipino nurses have come across and transplanted into the United States to specifically work in healthcare, which is a significant portion of the population and impact to our profession. And I think we often forget, and why I really appreciate your perspectives is not only are you a nurse, but you've witnessed that experience through the lens of being an immigrant in this country, and then becoming a nurse to actually give back to our community, to care for those who many others won't, as you said. And I as I'm looking at the world and these conversations, you make an excellent point that we as nurses, say nursing is not political, but every day we step across the threshold, we're going to be confronted with situations that by their sheer nature have an impact on our society, our humanity, and honestly, the politics in which are going to shape this nation. So I want to applaud you for being brave enough, one, to use your voice to have this conversation, because it is a very polarizing topic. But two, I think the best way for us to actually sort of bridge these gaps are to talk about these issues openly with others that see the world differently. And I really appreciate this conversation. So Marian, what are your thoughts as we're going in on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that you brought up a good point. Like nurses, we hold a position of power, and we also have a responsibility to our patients and to health equity, and to speak up, like you said, when we see that populations of our patients aren't getting and seeking the care that they need. In the code of ethics, it's listed numerous times that we should be advocating and protecting vulnerable populations. And so, yeah, I mean, I just, to Rebecca's point, I applaud you for, speaking up on social media, coming on the podcast. These aren't easy conversations to have, especially for people who are immigrants and may not feel as comfortable. I know you've been in this country for a really long time, but, let's call it like it is. If you're not a white woman in the nursing profession or in this country, no one's safe. And so to, be brave enough to use your voice in this way, we both really applaud you for that. And, we hope that other nurses who look more like me and Rebecca start to speak up a little more too.
And so, Lulette, as you know, we're sort of winding down this conversation. What are some things that you want other nurses who are listening to this podcast to take away? Lessons or thoughts that you think are just imperative that they should be thinking about as we're entering a period where we're seeing less immigrants go to the emergency room. We're seeing less Americans have access to healthcare and great things, but we also are seeing our colleagues, 20% of the entire healthcare workforce is actually foreign born. And I know that there's concern even in those situations, but what do you think nurses need to know about this? And how can we be empathetic in this kind of time? What should we be doing?
I'll go back to how I started this conversation. I would, listen to an immigrant story. Somebody, even for myself, I just recently had a conversation with one of our frontline nurses, and I just talking to her, found out that she was a lawyer in the Philippines for 10 years before she became a nurse. And I was blown away, but that's her story it's not unusual. A lot of immigrants, they are well educated. They are doctors, nurses in other countries. Her sister's a surgeon, and she became a nurse to come here because they knew the opportunity would be better for their family. So I would encourage you to, you may be working with somebody who's an immigrant, but you didn't know their story, where they came from, and just to remember that we are all human first. Advocating for somebody, you don't need to be the loudest voice. You just have to be a consistent one. They know, that people can lean on you to support them in times when there's a need, that they feel that they can trust you to be able to elevate their voice. So I would just use your voice, your credibility as a bridge to let people know that you know what you're talking about, that that they should listen to your story, because they should not dismiss what you have to say, because you know how this will affect people, even your own family in the future. Put yourself in the shoes of those immigrants. This could be your family member. That's I always just think of that. And I would say that really just pay attention to what's going on and know what is happening in the world, just to be on top of to how you can help advocate for your colleagues, for immigrants, people who don't look like you, and know the data plus story moves people. I always, and in my own professional career, I always use that. When data is powerful, but then you tie that to a story, it will be more impactfful, and people will listen. And I think just just being able to allow yourselves to realize who is not in this room when there's a conversation that's happening, to be able to not just for immigrants, but really for for anything. If not everybody in the room is represented, then I would find out who that is, and then find a way to get their story and in the conversation, because everyone's voice matters.
Well, that I think that's a perfect place to end this conversation. I really appreciate you coming on and spending the time with Marion and I. Marion, I'll turn it over to you for final thoughts.
My final thought is going to be a quote from Lulette's LinkedIn post, which I'll put up one more time, where she said, "When we make it harder for immigrant nurses to stay, to study, to thrive, we're not just failing them, we are failing ourselves." And I couldn't agree more. So, Lulette, thank you again for joining us on the Love and Leary podcast. And we look forward to advocating with you in the days, weeks, and years to come. Thanks for listening to the Love and Leary podcast. We hope this conversation sparked new ideas, challenged your thinking, and reminded you of the power nurses have to lead change.
If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it. You can find more episodes and join the conversation wherever you do your podcast listening.